As twilight descended upon a weary Roman legion, soaked to the bone from relentless downpours, Marcus felt his eyelids grow heavy beneath the brim of his helmet. It was another day spent laboring at Alesia, very heartbeat of Gallic defiance against Rome's expansionist dreams under Julius Caesar's leadership during the tumultuous times known as the Gallic Wars, a series of military campaigns waged by the Roman Republic between 58 and 50 BC. Marcus was one among thousands from the 10th legion assigned to this siege colossal undertaking, where discipline would be their salvation or doom as they hunkered down against Vercingetorix's impregnable fortress, a symbol of Gallic resistance. The earth beneath his boots was cold and damp from the rain that seemed to fall without respite or constant drumbeat, in sync with their hammering pickaxes into formation as they built walls and trenches against this looming enemy stronghold. The fortifications rose slowly, steadily around them like a protective embrace under Caesar's watchful eye, for he was more than just general. To Marcus, he embodied charisma that seemed almost magical in its ability to rally the spirits of his soldiers even as they wore themselves down. As night approached and brought respite from the rain's relentless assault on their campfires, warmth their beacon against uncertainty, Marcus found himself seated upon a fallen log, gazing at Caesar with admiration in his eyes that held no sign of fatigue. In these quiet moments before sleep claimed them all, Marcus reflected on the discipline instilled within him by stern centurions and inspired by Julius's own charisma or force, as commanding here, as it was during battles across distant lands where Rome had fought fierce wars against hordes of Gauls. The siege at Alesia required not only military might but a testament to endurance, for Vercingetorix and his men were known far and wide. They would fight with everything within them till the very last drop of blood ran through their veins or hope faded from their eyes like dying stars. Marcus understood that victory at Alesia meant control over Gaul. It was Rome's right, yet he also felt an ache for those who stood in his way, freedom-loving Celtic tribesmen with hearts as fierce and untamable as the wild horses they tended to. But tonight Marcus surrendered himself fully to Caesar's dream of conquest. The emperor had been known to share visions on such nights when sleep took him deep into his restless slumber while he lay in bed back at Rome before returning with strategies that often turned the tides against Gallic resilience. Marcus let out a tired sigh, feeling every muscle strain from days' work, as they had been coaxed to harden and endure for this Cossack siege of not just Vercingetorix's stronghold, but the very concept that freedom could stand against Rome. Yet, even in fatigue, lay a sense of duty, and understanding that their efforts here would echo into eternity, as they stood on precipice between civilization and barbarism, shaping history with every stone laid by weary Roman hands at Alesia's gates. The rain ceased just past midnight. The relentless downpour had given way to a soft drizzle that now whispered secrets of ancient fights fought on these very grounds where Marcus and his legion stood firm, each brick laid in fortifications around them as testament not only to Rome's power, but also their determination. As the first light touched upon Caesar's steely resolve etched into every line about him the same tenacity that had brought a single man of humble beginnings through adversity and triumph across Europe, Asia Minor, Egypt, Gaul itself, to his study in Rome where he planned their next moves. Marcus felt the weight of history within these moments before sleep claimed them once again as they prepared for tomorrow's labor under Caesar's command at Alesia, within which stood a chance not just for military glory, but perhaps even an unexpected encounter with Vercingetorix himself, one that might change their fates irrevocably. And in this prelude to dreaming, as the world held its breath, awaited dawn's light upon these soldiers of Rome, Marcus closed his eyes and surrendered once more unto slumber, with tales of discipline, charisma, as Marcus lay nestled against his shield in a corner of their fortified encampment outside Alesia's gates. He felt an overwhelming sense of solidarity with his brothers in arms and those yet to join them from Rome itself. The night had brought forth tales not just of conquest, but also camaraderie that transcended the mere steel they bore into battle, stories woven by hands like their own, which now tirelessly worked through Alesia's gates under Caesar's command. Tonight was different, though tonight felt charged with destiny as Marcus and his legionnaires prepared for what might be the defining confrontation of Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, a siege that promised not just glory, but perhaps an unforeseen alliance or reconciliation. The Romans had come to Gaul seeking retribution after being humbled by Vercingetorix and his fierce resistance against them in the past years of skirmishes. Amidst this prelude to dreaming, Marcus closed his eyes as Caesar's voice echoed through their encampment one last time before bedtime discussions. "Remember our course of liberty for Gaul and a legacy that will outlive us all." The legionnaires murmured in agreement. They knew the task ahead was arduous, but each of them held an unwavering belief in Caesar's vision as their guiding light through this darkness. As Marcus drifted into sleep under his woolen blanket, he dreamt once more of Vercingetorix, a figure both feared and admired by the Gallic tribes for turning Gaul against Rome, with a passionate speech that still roused memories in their hearts to this day. He envisioned how they might encounter each other at Alesia's gates, two great leaders on opposing sides of history, about to lock eyes across time's expanse, perhaps bridge it beyond the battleground, where only one could stand victorious before dawn pierced through nightfall with its blinding light. The dream continued into Marcus' mind as he woke up from a deep sleep, feeling an unusual surge of anticipation and determination coursing through his veins, a sensation so profound that even in the pre-dawn hours it felt like sunlight had already begun to touch upon Caesar's steely resolve. It was this same tenacity Marcus himself aspired to one day emulate, having grown from a peasant of humble beginnings into an esteemed military strategist and tactician under Rome's illustrious leader. He rose quietly at the first hint of sunlight filtering through their canvas tents, sound of his own breathing steady in the cool morning air, harmonizing with the distant clank as another legionnaire sharpened sword against stone outside. Marcus knew that today they would face Vercingetorix's mightiest warriors, and he vowed to fight not just for Caesar, but also out of respect for Gaul's proud history, which had once been his own before becoming Roman soil under their boots, or testament etched into every line about him. As Marcus helped organize the messengers' reports from Rome, detailing plans and preparations against Vercingetorix with strategic precision that only Caesar himself could devise in such grandeur of thought, he couldn't help but marvel at how these men before him had become instruments upon which history was etched. Each man carried his own burden of past triumphs or tribulations. Each soul within the legion shared a common thread or story that wove through Rome and Gaul's fates, their dreams now converging in this decisive moment at Alesia's gates, where destiny awaited to unfold. The sun climbed higher as Marcus watched from behind his shield stand, not just the fortifications of stone they had built, but also a sense of unity that could only arise when men shared purpose and spirit, or bond formed in adversity, which now promised potential glory or tragedy upon tomorrow's horizon. As he looked back on these encampments filled with both camaraderie and war, Marcus felt his own place within it firmly established, a soldier of Rome whose destiny might yet be penned into the annals alongside those who had come before him, or humble servant to Caesar's command in an epoch where history was made not by kings alone, but also by men like himself, willing their fates with every stone laid at Alesia's gates. As he returned from his watch outside the encampment, Marcus found solace for a moment among fellow soldiers. As they shared, Marcus felt a gentle caress of camaraderie as he joined his brothers in arms at the heart of their encampment, where laughter and tales mingled like wine in goblets under flickering torches, glow or respite from the grim shadows that danced on Alesia's gates. The air was thick with stories spun by veterans. Marcus leaned forward eagerly as one soldier recounted an escape through forests, where trees whispered secrets of old to those who would listen closely enough. His ears filled not only with the echoes of valor, but also reverberated a sense of solemn duty that bound them all in silent prayer beneath their togas and tunics, or brotherhood sealed by fate's unpredictable hand, where fortune smiled or frowned on each man's shoulders alike. As Marcus settled into the familiarity of shared meals with his brethren at a nearby hearth, he found it in their eyes that mirrored both respect and fear, the same emotions felt when standing shoulder to shoulder against legionnaires or Gauls beyond Alesia's walls. The taste of fresh bread was less satisfying today. The bitterness seemed to linger on his tongue like a reminder of battles fought in distant lands, where blood stained both soil and stone, a testament not just to Roman prowess, but also their heartache for those who fell asunder within these very gates. The night brought its own tales. The campfire's flames leapt higher than any aspirations they had before Alesia, where dreams of glory or despair were sown like seeds in fertile minds, or landscape painted not with the brushstrokes, but through shared experiences that would carve their stories deep within history's annals. Marcus listened intently as a centurion spoke passionately about the glories Rome had already bestowed upon him, of battles won and cities claimed under his own hands. It was an oration designed to inspire, yet also served as a silent reminder that destiny's quill could pen either triumph or tragedy. The following morning arrived with no less urgency. Each soldier knew the weight upon their shoulders, wherein lay not just Roman ambition, but human frailty too. Marcus felt it acutely when his fingers brushed against those of a fellow legionary, whose eyes bore the silent scars of personal loss amidst this grand conflagration. They shared an unspoken understanding. Each man's past was as much a part of Rome's march forward, and Alesia would be but one chapter in their long tale or story that continued beyond the grasp of even Caesar himself to tell or comprehend fully until time itself relinquished its hold. During patrol duty outside encampment limits, where gulls lurked like spectres amidst rolling hills and dense forests, Marcus's keen senses picked up whispers carried by windrummers of reinforcements bolstering the enemy's ranks. He relayed this intelligence to his command with a sense of gravity that matched Caesar's own expectations. The sun scorched their backs as they marched, each step inching them closer not only towards Alesia, but also into tomorrow's uncertain fate or path, where glory was promised and loss lurked like distant thunder on the horizon of a soldier's life. As dusk settled upon encampment once more, with an orange hue bleeding through to touch skin, Marcus reflected inwardly as he gazed at the fortified lines that bore witness to both man's fear and hope. Stones themselves seemed alive under moonlight, which cast their shadows into silhouettes of valor. His mind wandered not only across battlefields, but also within his own heart, where love for country, comrades, and perhaps a dreamer's wish lay tangled like threads in the loom that fate had set before the Mac tapestry, whose final image was yet unseen by any eye save those of gods or time itself. In contemplation's silent hours, where night draped its cloak over all, Marcus found solace not just within his duty, but also in the thought that beyond Alesia's gates lay a legacy etched with blood and courage, or narrative shaped by more than mere victories or defeats. It was an odyssey shared across generations, where every soldier's life became part of Rome's enduring saga. Marcus, too, yearned not for personal accolades, but to find his place within this grand epoch, servant who might stand as testament that even in the midst of empire and conquest, as Marcus lay beneath a canopy of twinkling stars in his tent within Alesia's encampment, he let himself sink into memories as warm and comforting as the earth below him, a tapestry woven with threads from both triumphant days and those steeped in sorrow. The moonlight that spilled through gaps between pale needles seemed to dance on his face before it surrendered back to darkness, reminding Marcus of life's ephemerality, which lay just beyond the horizon like a river flowing towards an unknown sea. The following dawn broke with soft whispers, as if even time itself was attempting not to disturb him from this river-laden repose. It beckoned his weary form back into consciousness and duty, yet Marcus found himself unable to shake the thoughts that lingered like ghosts at a feast in an empty hall, or spectral presence of what might have been for another soul, or perhaps even multiple souls entangled with theirs. On this muted morning, as he emerged from slumber, his eyes met those of Lucius across the campfire gathering, where fellow soldiers shared tales and camaraderie intertwined like roots beneath a mighty oak in an old forester testament to humanity's resolve amidst chaos. Marcus offered them no greeting for fear that words might shatter his internal sanctuary of reflection, which had taken root deep within, where personal glory paled compared to the grandeur and legacy etched into history's annals by those who came before him, legends whose names were sung with reverence in every corner of Rome. The encampment continued its rhythm as Marcus joined his brothers in arms for midday repasts, where stories flowed freely and laughter punctuated the air, like bird-song amongst leaves, rustling secrets through ancient trees, at Alesia's edge, stark contrast to tales of battle. Here, in this momentary peace, he imagined himself as merely a thread within Rome's grand tapestry, not woven from gold nor silver, but humble linen and dye that bore the same colors as his own spirit, unassuming yet crucial for its beauty and strength to endure through ages. As twilight approached once again with her cloak of indigo hues swaying gently, Marcus sat alone upon a hillside overlooking Alesia, silent guardian gazing into the night, where stars, winked knowingly at secrets shared only amongst themselves and those who dared to dream. The city below lay quiet under its protective shadow. Every stone was steeped in stories of valor, whispering their names across centuries like ancestral echoes that spoke directly from Rome's heartbeat itself into Marcus. Yearning solar resonance felt, not just by the touch, but also within his very being. The night deepened, and with it came a profound solitude wherein he contemplated how each soldier was an integral part of this historical narrative that transcended individual existence, becoming as much Roman through shared experience as their bloodline, and understanding Marcus found both comforting and daunting, like standing on the shore staring into Poseidon's vast domain below. In his solitary reverie under Alesia's night sky painted in somnolent blues, he considered how love for country could be born from such a legacy, the same patriotism that had been passed down through generations of Romans before him and would continue to inspire countless others after. Love was not the only emotion etched into this shared human endeavor. Fear, too, played its part, interwoven with hope like threads in an ever-evolving tapestry where no soldier could claim sole ownership, but had instead been entrusted by Mars himself as keepers of history's flamer legacy that illuminated their way forward. As his eyes grew heavy and thoughts began to fray at the edges, Marcus found peace in recognizing this interconnectedness, which bound him not just with men who fought beside him, but also with countless others throughout time whose spirits seemed as close as if they were sitting beside him under Alesia's watchful gaze. It was a sacred communion, where memories of bravery and tragedy blurred together, becoming one continuous narrative that transcended the individual or saga far greater than himself, yet intimately his own to carry within his soul's quiet chambers as he lay down on Alesia's forgiving earth. He drifted into dreamscapes where heroes and generals passed whispered tales of their journeys, each thread in the loom pulling ever forward towards an unseen horizontal legacy that no as Marcus closed his eyes against Alesia's gentle night sky, its stars a soft tapestry of light above him, he felt as though time itself had slowed to match the rhythm of this moment, each heartbeat an echo in history's hallways that cradled souls and whispered tales long past. The weight on his chest eased with every breath drawn beneath Alesia's watchful gaze, a land where valor was etched into stone as much as it lived within the blood of its people, a testament to enduring courage passed down like an heirloom through ages that Marcus had come too late to witness. His thoughts wandered backward in time. Across open fields and before him stood a young boy, his face painted with innocence yet shadowed by the burden of impending fates, unknown, a reflection not just of himself, but also of Mars, who watched over them all as they prepared for battles that would shape history's course. The child looked up to Marcus' own eyes then and saw a kindred spirit, both bound by threads woven with fear yet brightened by the luster of hopeful defiance, or shared destiny not just between soldier and legend, but also kin in bloodline under Rome's vast sky. The boy grew into man as seasons turned their pages, swiftly until he too stood tall beside Marcus, a reflection across time that transcended age or experience. Together they felt the drum of Mars beating strong within the call to arms, where honor and home fused in battle's embrace on distant shores. Their lives intertwined like roots beneath Alesia's soil, each victory carved into eternity as if by Vulcan himself, who forged not just weapons but the very soul of Rome through their deeds, each clash a stroke upon history's grand canvas, where triumph and loss mingled indistinguishably. They returned to Alesia in weary bodies, yet undimmed spirits alight with tales that would be told by bards under oaken rafters as the fire crackled its own symphony or harmony of voices chronicling bravery and despair interlaced so thoroughly they became indistinguishable. The very stones spoke to Marcus in their language, recounting epics etched into them like runes bearing witness that transcended time itself. Each stone a storyteller who stood as silent guardians of Rome's glory, a monument not just to those fallen, but also for the love and loss shared amongst brothers in arms. As he lay on Alesia's forgiving earth, Marcus felt his spirit stretch across this eternal landscape, where every soldier was a custodian in their own right, guardians who bore witness as history's flame flickered brightly within the crucible of human endeavor, a torch passed from one generation to another like an unbroken chain that spanned centuries and wove its way into myth itself. And so Marcus listened in his dreamscapes where heroes past spoke not just with their tales, but also through them, a communion as sacred as the bonds of blood, or lover continuum from valor to legacy across an unseen horizon that stretched far beyond himself yet remained intimately connected. He saw each soul who fought before him and after, bound together in this collective journey where no man stood alone, but amidst many whose stories merged into one narrative as vast as Alesia's own embrace, a saga of humanity's reach for greatness that flowed through the ages like a river carving its way to an oceanic epilogue. In these dreamscapes, every battle was both end and beginning, each fallen hero not just remembered but revered as if they walked beside him or communion, where even death seemed less of farewell than rather another step in the eternal dance with destiny that Marcus had come to understand so well through his own journey. The stories whispered themselves into oblivion, yet remained unyielding like Alesia's stone beneath their feet, a testament not just for today, but always yesterday or past and future interwoven as tightly as the threads of fate that bound him evermore to this world beyond waking life. And when Marcus awakened with Dorn's tentative touch upon his face, he found himself looking out across Alesia's rolling hills anew, but carrying within him a treasure trove, a chronicle not just written in history books or sung by bards under the moonlight of countless nights. His own soul housed these tales as if they were personal relics, each memory and dreamstone polished to shine brighter with every heartbeat, a sacred communion, as though sensing his contemplation, the winged whispered secrets of ancient times when valor defined one's worth or truth. Marcus remembered vividly from legendary tales where heroes were born not in grandeur but humble beginnings. Some rose like a phoenix only to fall as swiftly. Among these stories lived Caesar, whose strategic mind and indomitable will carved paths through history much as rivers shape landscapes. His heart echoed with the same fear that had haunted Marcus since childhood, an unresolved past lurking in every shadow of doubt cast by a fading sun. It was on this hill, under these very skies, where he once stood tall before legions and now alone among rolling fields, witnessing his reflection distorted within the rippling stream below, that Marcus decided to seek counsel with echoes past, memories that lived as if they never died but waited in patience for a chance to speak. He closed his eyes, not just seeing Alesia's landscape through time-worn lenses of grief and courage intermingled like threads within the fabric of history itself, a place where even death seemed more an affirmation than abandonment. He thought about how each life that came before him had left imprints as indelible as those on his own soul. The stories Marcus knew well by heart now in this somnolent hour when the world slept and history's whispers grew loudest, whispered to reveal a path not just through Alesia's past, but also towards an understanding of their shared present. It was as though each echo bore his thoughts, speaking truth that lay dormant in every stone. He had learned about the legends here where heroes once strode boldly and now stood still among ancient ruins, or place where time seemed to fold upon itself like a river looping back on its own currents. He felt as if it were his birthright, not just because of blood, but belonging that flowed through Alesia's veins. Slowly opening eyes anew in the soft light filtering down from above, Marcus began to see with clarity how these tales shaped him like rivers sculpt canyons and mountains over millennia. He saw himself not just as a man but as part of Alesia's enduring legacy, where each battle forged an unbreakable link within the chain that bound all who had called this place home. His heart ached with knowledge, as it always did whenever he considered how his ancestors' lives intertwined inseparably like roots beneath a mighty tree. Herein lay the secret to understanding not just Alesia but himself as well, woven into history's grand tapestry where each thread held its own story. The hilltop bore witness also to Dato, Marcus reflecting on how every victory and defeat was another verse in this ever-evolving saga. He thought of battles won not just by strength but resilience, as Alesia's people had demonstrated time after time against encroaching foes. Yet it struck him that true valor lay within the heart's capacity to accept loss and grief while still daring forward, a lesson Marcus lived daily since his own encounter with darkness. He could almost hear Julius Caesar himself speaking through ages, urging courage not just in conquest, but compassion too. Sitting amongst remnants of history that spoke louder than any bard's tale under moonlight, Marcus felt the kinship to all who had tread these paths before. Their spirits seemed as present here on Alesia's hilltop, whispering wisdom through the leaves and stones around him. He knew now how every echo of footsteps in ancient corridors or distant battleground was not just history, but prophecy or testament to humanity's relentless pursuit for greatness. Even as time flowed onward like a river reaching its final oceanic embrace, Marcus found himself anchored ever more deeply into the eternal dance of destiny. The sun now high and bold in Alesia's cerulean sky, Marcus sat quietly on a moss-covered rock at Alesia's hilltop as he watched children play in its gentle valleys, their laughter echoing through time like music to his ears and across ages. These moments of innocent joy contrasted sharply with the harsh realities Marcus had known. Yet they reminded him that life itself was a tapestry woven from threads both sombre and vibrant, or truth he carried within himself as steadfastly as any badge upon his chest. His gaze drifted upward to the sky, where wisps of cloud formed shapes reminiscent of ancient battles that once raged here among these very hills. Marcus felt a profound kinship with those who had faced their trials and tribulations beneath this same celestial dome of lineage he was proud yet humbled to be partaking in, albeit from the quieter end. He closed his eyes briefly as an owl's hoot resonated through Alesia's silent night, a sound that seemed like nature itself joining him on this sacred hilltop where history and present merged seamlessly under starlight and moonbeams, a place where every soul had left imprints in the earth. Marcus remembered Julius Caesar's words, Veni, vidi, vici, yet he realized that true conquest was not found merely within a battlefield's scars, but also amidst compassionate hearts and open minds, a lesson hard-earned through years of personal struggle. As the night deepened around him like comforting velvet drapes, Marcus felt his own heart expand with empathy for those who had suffered yet stood resilient in their shared humanity. He understood that even as they all sought light amidst darkness's shadow, it was not merely through triumph, but also understanding and mutual respect. He rose from the moss to walk along a path worn by countless feet over millennia pilgrimage of thoughts from Marcus, who had come seeking wisdom in whispers carried on wind currents that brushed his face like gentle fingers, urging him forward with invisible threads connecting past and future. Alesia's ancient walls stood firm around them as silent sentinels to the passageways they shielded within. These very stones seemed alive today under Marcus' touch, or tactile connection bridging gaps of time that separated his world from their echoes through ages, making him feel part of something larger than himself. A sudden rustle in nearby foliage drew Marcus' attention to a small family who had just arrived at the hilltop. They seemed lost, but for each other an embodiment of modern innocence and purity he longed for amidst tales that often spoke too harshly of strife. The father explained his children were here on an educational excursion, eager to learn about their ancestors' history firsthand rather than through textbooks alone. Marcus smiled at this youthful curiosity, or spark in the dimming twilight he knew was crucial for a brighter tomorrow's legacy. As they approached him with friendly greetings and earnest questions, Marcus felt like an unexpected mentor to these young learners. He shared stories of valor not just in conquest, but also about Alesia's peaceful resolution during times when conflict seemed certain, or narrative thread he had longed for all his life since the encroaching darkness that tested him so fiercely once upon a time, yet which now felt like distant shadows fading into obscurity. He spoke of Julius Caesar's encounter with Cleopatra and how it taught them about unexpected alliances. Marcus found himself enchanted by tales where wisdom often came cloaked in diplomacy rather than just weaponry, a lesson he had carried ever since his own encounters, which were not always marked by swords but sometimes also bonds forged through understanding and shared humanity. The family listened intently as Marcus recounted the siege of Alesia. They marveled at how it was a turning point in their history, a moment when unity became strength on both sides, where even enemies could find common ground to stand together against greater forces that threatened them all. These young minds soaked up his words like sponges, and Marcus felt the warmth spreading through him. He saw hope flicker within each of their eyes as they imagined themselves standing united with those who had faced similar trials in times long past, or shared strength across ages that bound them together. As hours trickled by, a gentle breeze carried Marcus' words to ears near and far. His stories seemed to blend seamlessly into the night's symphony of rustling in Chapter 8 of our tale, woven with dreams and whispered histories by Marcus to his family nightly before sleep. We find ourselves in Rome during its zenith, under Augustus Caesar's rule. The empire was vast, but felt as close-knit within the walls where this chapter begins. Her familial bond strengthened not only through blood ties, but also shared values and lessons from history that Marcus would often recite before bedtime, stories of yore, tales which he hoped might inspire his children's hearts. Augustus had brought peace to Rome after years of civil wars. The Pax Romana was about more than just tranquility. It symbolized a golden age where arts and culture flourished under benevolent rule. Marcus would speak fondly of Augustan Rome, its bustling forums alive with discussions on philosophy as much as politics, all while he painted vivid pictures in the minds of his children about how they could shape their destinies through wisdom rather than warfare alone. On one such evening, when twilight embraced the family's home and dusk settled upon Rome like a velvet cloak, Marcus began to tell another story that would guide them as much by its morals as it did with its plot. The tale of Queen Boadicea, once ruler in Britain, but now an emblematic figure for courage against tyranny and oppression. Her fierce rebellion against Roman rule, though ultimately quelled at the Battle of Waterlingford, was a testament to her unyielding spirit, and inspiration Marcus would draw upon when he faced his own challenges in life with equal bravery, but tempered by diplomacy learned from tales like Caesar's. Boadicea, whose name meant daughter of the goddess Diana, was not one to shy away from conflict if it promised justice for her people. Marcus would tell his children how Boadicea and Queen Cartimandua fought alongside each other at first, but later found themselves on opposing sides due to conflicting loyalties. In Allegory, he used himself as a man often caught between two worlds, the one of Rome, with all its wonders and dangers. Marcus' stories always ended by emphasizing how unity was more powerful than division, whether through Boadicea's fierce heart or Julius Caesar's diplomatic prowess in Egypt. And even though his own life had been a tapestry of alliances, Marcus taught that shared humanity could bridge any divide. As he wove tales from the past into their present-day lives, each anecdote felt like threads stitching them closer to one another, and more deeply rooted in historical lineage, connecting his family back through time with all those who had lived before him. The nights were filled not just with stories of great men, but also whispered the lessons these leaders imparted on to Marcus, which he now hoped would be carried forward by the next generation within this Roman household, and beyond their walls to other families, as well-spreading seeds for a future that could grow from understanding rather than enmity. Within his tales of olden times lay reflections on modern life. Rome under Caesar's rule had its own challenges, but the strength it took not just in battlefields or political arenas, but also within familial bonds and shared meals provided Marcus comfort, a reminder that even as he recounted history's greatest tales to his children before they drift into sleep, as midnight oil burned low with candles flickering like stars against the night sky, a serene silence settled over their home in Rome after each chapter of stories had been told, and hearts felt lighter for having heard the testament that even as empires rise and fall, there are tales within these walls to remind us all about strength through wisdom. In his heart Marcus knew the true wealth lay not just in conquests or treasures, but also in stories passed down like heirlooms across generations. For when children of Rome were told that their fathers and grandfathers had faced trials, won victorious, and even suffered losses with dignity, they too could understand how to face the morrow. And so Marcus would continue every night until sleep took hold in his youngest child's eyes, for he knew this was not just an act of storytelling but a ritual where legacy intermingled, binding them closer with each tale told, their dreams filled with the echoes of history as they drifted into peaceful slumber. Marcus sat by his grandchild's bedside one evening as they listened to tales of ancient Rome with a soft, affectionate voice that seemed like it could lull any listener into a gentle sleep. As he recounted stories from Caesar's reign and the mighty phalanxes of Alexander the Great, Marcus noticed how wide-eyed his grandson's face was, fixed on every word, as if seeing these figures in life rather than just through history books. But tonight, Marcus had a special tale to tell that echoed with love and sacrifice from centuries past, but also whispered of the personal bonds he cherished deeply within this very home. He began by speaking about his father's stories during their childhood summers spent in Tuscany as they dug for fossils along cliffsides, searching not just to learn more than textbooks could offer them, but bonding over shared experiences and laughter that seemed timeless against the backdrop of an endless sea. Once upon a time, Marcus began with his grandson nestled close in his arms. My father was like Rome itself, mighty yet humble before its children. His voice wavered not from emotion, but rather because it traced lines through history that connected directly to a warmth of familial love. Marcus recounted how as a boy during times when life in Italy could be unpredictable, his father had often shared tales with him about Marcus Aurelius and Stoic resilience, their philosophy he himself came to embody through hardships like poverty or political turmoil that Rome faced. These stories not only taught Marcus, but also wove into the fabric of their home a thread of strength in adversity, an understanding that true richness did not lie solely within gold and marble temples. As his grandson listened intently to this blend of personal history with global narratives, he found himself reflecting on how Marcus' father had taught him the importance of being present for family the same way Julius Caesar was remembered best by those who stood beside him in battle rather than from afar. Marcus spoke fondly of his mother and her gentle ways that brought comfort during times when he felt alone, just as their ancestors had found solace through the enduring tales shared around hearths before electric lights dimmed bedrooms to darkness each night. It was a reminder that while empires came into being under ambition's guiding hand and collapsed beneath greed's heavy sway, within these four walls lay something far more precious, a lineage of stories as enduring as the city they called home. He spoke now with tender nostalgia about a time when his grandmother would tell tales by candlelight during long winter evenings, her voice weaving through generations, shared experiences like threads in an eternal tapestry that brought warmth to all who listened close enough and felt the weight of history gently rest upon them. And so Marcus continued his storytelling with a heartfelt smile as he watched recognition dawn on his grandson's face. It is through these stories passed down from father to son that we remember how strength can be found in vulnerability and wisdom within our shared human experience. He traced the lineage of their family's history alongside Rome's own storied past. As he approached tales about his grandfather who had fought bravely through both world wars, Marcus saw a glimmer in young eyes filled with pride for someone they only knew as Pops. Tales that wove the personal struggles of courage into broader strokes painted by history's hand or connection to humanity's shared journey toward peace and understanding. And remember, Marcus whispered, his voice softer now in hopeful tones towards bedtime tales as they touched upon a time when he himself had learned life lessons from these very stories while the world around him still rebuilt after great wars, or civilization that emerged stronger through its shared history and collective memories. As Marcus told of his mother's journey, her dream to build something enduring in their family beyond just houses they could call home, but a legacy imbued with love for one another, he saw the reflection of Rome's own endeavors, the Colosseum standing as much more than stone and mortar when seen through generations that had found joy within its walls. As midnight neared on this special evening filled with shared heritage and heartfelt stories from Marcus' ancestors, he felt a profound sense of peace knowing his grandson understood the weight of their family's legacy, or lineage not just built upon land or riches, but through love for one another. Marcus' voice, now a soft lullaby of nostalgia and hopefulness, drew the boy deeper into slumber while Marcus recounted tales of an era when their ancestors lived through times that seemed so distant yet shared by all humanity, or time where every struggle was for something more substantial than survival. It sought peace in a world often torn asunder. The stories spoke not just to grand adventures and quests, but also to the quiet moments after conflicts had cooled, when people gathered under moonlit skies sharing tales of courage over meager candlelight fires that warmed hearts instead of mere flames against cold nights. As Marcus recounted his own journey alongside these narratives, or path punctuated by laughter and loss intertwined like vines around the pillars of their family tree, he could see in young Benjamin's sleepy eyes a reflection not just of personal growth, but also an awakening to something far greater. The Colosseum stood as Marcus had once seen it, majestic yet humbling, or monumental testament that withstood empires and eras because people held fast, clung together through shared memories rather than individual glory alone. The stories flowed like a river from one generation to another. They spoke of love forged in the kiln of hardship as strong as any Roman steel, or artisan's skill that shaped marble into lasting edifices and monuments which, Marcus noted with reverence, were not just relics but symbols or legacy echoed in their own family's history. And then came a tale less grandiose, yet infinitely more personal, as he shared of his mother Amelia's journey to the city, where she found love beyond her wildest dreams and built an enduring life with him, Marcus. Two lines that became intertwined like roots beneath ancient Roman soil when they wed, a union not just in matrimony, but a pledge between hearts. Through tales of his mother's toilless hands, shaping clay into delicate pottery, and resilience building their family home brick by brick, the essence of Rome was felt once more. Its spirit lived within these walls that had seen generations pass through the madhouse, not just a shelter, but an heirloom passed down for love. Marcus' narrative then meandered to the pivotal moment when his grandfather, too young during World War Roman II turmoil, yet profoundly influenced by tales of bravery and unity from Marcus himself, a boy no more than 10 at that time, but a man who would grow up embodying those very virtues. The stories painted vivid scenes where, even as the world raged outside, within their humble abode, lessons on courage were shared like bread to sustain spirits in times of want and fear, a family's collective memory acting much as a beacon through history's darker chapters. Marcus spoke now with fondness about the evenings when his grandfather would recite passages from books he once devoured, tales where heroes triumphed not by force, but kindling hope and trust in others, a legacy of peaceful resolution imparted upon young ears that listened eagerly. These nights were a quiet rebellion against chaos. They sowed seeds for tomorrow's generations to cultivate understanding, empathy, and the pursuit not just survival but happiness within themselves and each other, as surely as ancient Romans had once sought sustenance in togetherness. As midnight cloaked them with its silver blanket of stars, Marcus' tales wove an invisible thread between past struggles to present comforts, or lineage built upon more than land or wealth, but the foundation of unyielding love and shared memories as strong as any stone in Rome's mighty walls. The stories he had imparted were like keys opening doors within Benjamin's young mind that led back through time, inviting him into their family saga, where every person was a chapter rich with experiences beyond just the self, a story not of individual glory, but shared triumph over life's adversities and uncertainties. With each tale Marcus told by moonlight in his grandson's room came waves crashing as dawn painted its rosy fingers across the skyline of Rome. Marcus lay back on his bed with a smile gently caressing his lips, a testament to tales told and lessons learned by moonlight in Benjamin's room, stories that wove into dreams for both him as well as young eyes eagerly waiting. Tonight's narrative began when the streets hummed softly beneath their feet, a symphony of early risers who carried with them an unsung melodic song of hope and perseverance passed down from Marcus to Benjamin through generations before sunrise would herald its first light on new land. In his tales that night, Marcus spoke fondly not just of the triumphs, but also of trials faced by their forebears during Rome's gloried daytimes, when togetherness was a currency more valued than gold or silvered in wealth's grand exchange. He told Benjamin how Roman senators and plebeians alike, with bare hands clasped together under the marble pillars of the Forum, pledged to stand as one against tyranny's shadow, their solidarity a beacon that led them through tempests toward democracy's dawn. But Benjamin would interject softly between his words, with curiosity lighting up in his eyes like morning dew on leaves. How did they find the strength to stand united against such fear? To this young mind's inquiry, Marcus replied simply yet profoundly from tales of empathy and understanding. He recounted how Romans found kinship with strangers from distant lands or barbarian tribes not by birthright, but through shared humanity. They feasted together during famine as if they were brothers under the same sun, their laughter echoing in grand amphitheaters before a sea of faces that mirrored Rome's own heartbeat. People's pulse felt with every stone laid for arches and aqueducts. As Marcus unraveled these threads from history into the present day, he imparted wisdom to Benjamin through parables spun around tales like those of Hannibal crossing Alps or Brutus' fateful dagger in Caesar's back, not as mere events that shaped destinies, but lessons on ambition tempered with honor and compassion. In these stories, he showed how even the mightiest had to learn humility under life's unforgiving sands, or when glory turned into a gilded cage from which one could never escape if not for kindness that bloomed like roses in winter's garden between their fingers and hearts. The stories continued with Marcus sharing the tales of patrons who uplifted artists, philosophers, and thinkers whose ideas echoed through time, How a simple mistake beneath an artist's hand could tell more about his soul than words ever did, or silent testament to love that transcended life itself. He spoke of Seneca's stoic peace amidst the whirlwind, or Ovid's verses flowing into eternity despite exile, teaching Benjamin how enduring one's spirit could be as vital as any sword in battlefields where empires fell and rose to meet horizons anew. With every word Marcus spoke of Romer's city that birthed a world with its breath also showed the young boy his own family's sarder, not just through triumph but resilience against life's unpredictable stormy seas. Tales where each member had navigated their course by starlight and shared compass. Benjamin learned how Marcus himself was once like a seed buried in uncertainty before he found nourishment to sprout towards his purpose, or legacy intertwined with the tendrils of roots that ran deep into Rome's eternal soil, drawing strength from its core even as new branches reached for their own skyline. As night's curtain began to draw close on Marcus and Benjamin's world within four walls adorned by ancient frescoes whispering tales yet untold, the grandfather recounted stories of Rome's fall, not with despair, but hopeful lessons that from ruins rose phoenix-like rebirth, that every end was simply a gateway to new beginnings. Marcus spoke like an orator whose voice could command time itself. He told tales where the spirit, once quelled by darkness and ashen history's heartland of Rome, danced again with light's returner city reborn from its ashes, much as hope was born within Benjamin after hearing his grandfather. In those final moments, before sleep claimed them both under a sky now awash with sunlight, Marcus shared one last hour in chapter 12 of their shared history under a quilt as old and comforting as time itself. Marcus took Benjamin's hand in his own, their fingers intertwining like roots seeking water from ancient springs, as he spoke to him with the calm assurance that only generations can muster when they look back on times past, but also toward futures yet unfurling before their eyes. Benjamin felt every word resonate within him as if it were his own life's melody being played anew by a grandmaster pianist. "My dearest Benji," Marcus began with that affection he only showed to the blood in one's veins and another person whose heart beat along, "our family tree has always been both deep-rooted and evergreen. Even when times were harsh, we found our way through nature's most brutal winters. Our forebears lived by a credo I learned from them, that it is not the severity of life's storm which defines us, but how steadfastly one stands against its wrath." Benjamin listened intently as his grandfather continued to weave tales, each thread rich with lessons and warmth. The stories flowed like a gentle stream through lush landscapes that Marcus painted in the air around them, our world vibrant despite adversities endured by its people throughout ages, etched into their lineage's very DNA. It was during one such tempest, when Rome itself trembled beneath her own weight, and darkness crept across all corners of our city like a malevolent shadow, Marcus recounted with the solemnity befitting an elder bearing witness to centuries slipping by unnoticed as they passed through his fingertips. And yet from those shadows emerged light, a relentless hope that refused to be extinct. 081-2 As night's curtain began to draw close on Marcus and Benjamin's world within four walls adorned by ancient frescoes whispering tales yet untold, the grandfather recounted stories of Rome's fall, not with despair, but hopeful lessons that from ruins rose phoenix-like rebirth, that every end was simply a gateway to new beginnings. Marcus spoke like an orator whose voice could command time itself. He told tales where the spirit, once quelled by darkness and ashen history's heartland of Rome, danced again with light's returner city reborn from its ashes, much as hope was born within Benjamin after hearing his grandfather. In those final moments before sleep claimed them both under a sky now awash with sunlight, Marcus shared one last narrative that would forever echo in the boy's dreaming mind. The fall of Rome, he sighed heavily, was not just an end, but also our greatest beginning, or time when we learned to let go and begin again. He paused for a heartbeat as Benjamin's eyes grew glassy with tears that mirrored the golden light filtering through their window. "Do you remember?" he continued gently, his voice lowering like an ancient chant meant only for ears tuned by time itself to its frequency of wisdom and love. "When your mother was but a child." Benjamin's lips parted in memory's sweet echoes as Marcus guided him through the narrative. "She told me once that her name then spelled Prisper, meaning ancient or old-aged," he said with tenderness, painting his words, which made it easier for Benji to see himself standing on those cobbled stones beneath Rome's domes and pillars, her father's hands strong from laboring under the sun as she watched him carve a simple life amidst empire building. Your mother found her strength in simplicity, even when surrounded by opulence. Marcus told of how Prisker, with prideful heartbeat and delicate grace untouched by grandeur's shadow, had lived through famine that taught them all humility before nature's own seasons. He spoke then of the fires which raged not just to consume but as a fierce purifier in Rome's darkest hour, when corruption and greed were laid bare for all time. How they fought not with flame-born wrath, but with unwavering resolve, that even from ash could bloom new life. And there, Marcus said tenderly, as if tracing the lines of history etched in his grandson's palm, where we stand, our lineage born again and reforged by each generations will to endure. He told Benjamin that he himself had been a seed planted amidst uncertainty before finding the following morning found Marcus leading them through the bustling streets, where merchants hawked goods alongside philosophers debating under olive trees in forum squares. They passed by grand temples dedicated not just to gods, but also to human virtue sites that seemed almost like mirages of a different age, and yet were as present as their own breaths against the morning air. On this particular day, they visited an elderly artist whose murals told stories on walls across Rome, tales blending myth with everyday life in vibrant colors or palette that seemed to speak directly of Benji's soul's yearning for understanding his heritage beyond the mere facts and dates taught at school. The afternoon was spent exploring archaeological sites where Marcus shared legends about Rome before it became a city, whispered from one generation to generation as if carried on winds of time itself, or narrative tapestry woven into every stone pillar they stood beside or bricks that lay in ruins around them. As dusk approached and the first stars began to peek through Rome's urban canopy, Marcus recounted stories from ancient festivals where citizens celebrated not just with joy but also an awareness of life's fleeting nature, sentiment echoing back into Benji's heart as if it was a familiar lullaby. In the quiet hours before nightfall fully descended upon Rome, they visited an elderly matriarch in her secluded villa on the outskirts, where she had lived through wars and peace alike, a woman whose very existence seemed to defy time itself, with tales of resilience that Marcus shared as bedtime stories. The evening culminated a family gathering, an assemblage not just for celebration, but also remembrance. Laughter melded seamlessly into lamentations over loved ones passed on, an embodiment of life's eternal dance between joy and sorrow that was ever present in the Roman spirit. With each new dawn since, Benji found himself returning to these stories like a pilgrim drawn by invisible threads back to his roots. Every tale Marcus shared became stepping stones across rivers once traveled, but now forgotten paths were born under their feet, or living history that whispered of strength in simplicity and humility before nature's seasons, even amidst empire building. And as the final words were spoken beneath a sky where Rome's pillars stood witness to time immortalized through memory alone, Benji knew he had been planted with purpose among uncertainty, or seed destined to grow strong in his own way upon stones worn by countless others before him and that of generations yet unborn. For as Marcus looked into the eyes of this young man who sought understanding not just within Rome's grand tales, but beyond them, he saw a reflection, an echo resounding with life's quiet rhythms, or heartbeat aligned to those shared moments across centuries that connected one soul directly to another. And in these stories and experiences woven into the fabric of time itself, Benji found not just his past rediscovered, but also himself remade by each generation's will to endure against all odds through history's relentless flowing river, lineage born again under a sky where once stood empires now lay in peaceful slumber. As twilight descended upon Rome's ancient cobbled streets, a hush seemed to fall over them like delicate lace draped from an elegant mantelpiece in Marcus' grand family home, where he now resided as Benji, a name that whispered of legacy and purpose. His days had been spent not only tracing the footsteps of his ancestors who'd once roamed these very stones, but also unearthing stories etched into every corner, crevice, and cobble-laden pathway where history pulsed with life even in its repose beneath a sky that watched over all epochs. The Eternal City had always been his muse. Within the embrace of Rome's grandiose monuments like Colosseum's shadows, he sought solace and knowledge, kind only found when one listens to tales not told with words but through whispers on wind-blown leaves. The Temple of Venus Genetrix had been his first guidepost in the city that breathed histories into men's souls. Standing there, amidst marble columns and time's echoes, he felt a kinship not just with Marcus, but all pilgrims who walked Rome seeking their reflections within its storied heart. Today was different, though today his journey led him to the very spot where history's threads converged for Benji. This place, that had once been an ordinary street corner in life, now throbbed with significance as he stood on it, feeling waves of invisible connections ripple through him from ages past. The stones beneath his feet hummed a melody only felt and not heard, or symphony played by generations who'd lived here before him. Marcus' voice had led them along this path back to themselves, where they found strength in their heritage, much like the way Benji was finding himself amidst Rome. As he gazed upon a fading fresco of Jupiter blessing travelers, a depiction not unlike his own pilgrimage through time and memory, Marcus' eyes met with clarity, as if looking into mirrors across ages, reflected on this very spot where they now stood together, two souls traversing timelines to touch the essence that binds them. The soft murmur of history wrapped around Benji like a comforting shawl. He felt every pulse, and each beat resonated with his heart, a testament to endurance through Rome's seasons of glory and decay, alike as nature's own rhythms mirrored humanity's undulating course. Their shared journey now drew them toward the mighty Tiber River that had once been a lifeline for countless Roman citizens, just like his ancestors before him, a river baptized in stories of love lost and found along its banks, where lovers' footprints mingled with those who came to pray or escape their burdens. Here Marcus imparted wisdom about the water's role as a silent witness. It knew Rome through seasons uncountable, yet remained ever present for all to see, but not always feel, or constant flow mirroring humanity's own relentless forward march despite empires that would rise and fall on its shores. As night approached, with swift intentions casting longer shadows upon the landscapes of history they traversed, Benji felt an affinity for his adopted city as he watched stars begin to adorn Rome's ancient canopy, or celestial map where constellations whispered secrets only discernible by those who seek earnestly. It was here that Marcus shared tales about the heavens' influence on Roman lives, how their gods were believed to govern fates and fortunes through patterns woven across night skies. These stories held an essence of truths transcending mere mythology, a reflection of humanity's innate desire for understanding amidst nature's mysterious expanses. Their journey took them next along the Appian Way, where Marcus guided Benji through epochs past that had once seen this road as Rome's lifeline to her far-flung provinces, or conduit of culture and conquest, which now lay silent but for echoes carried by night's breeze. This path held stories untold beneath its surface, where travelers in yesteryears sought solace under a sky that saw empires come and go. It was here the past felt most palpable as they traced their fingers over stones smooth from centuries of footsteps, or tactile connection to history's heartbeat. As dawn threatened on Rome's horizon, painting hope across her ancient face with hues that promised renewal, just like Marcus had done for Benji through stories and shared experiences, he realized his journey. Benji sighed contentedly as he lay beneath a blanket of stars on Rome's historic grounds, or tapestry woven from threads of history and nighttime serenity, where stories seemed to seep into his dreams like whispers in the wind. The Appian Way stretched out before him not just as an ancient Roman road, but also as a pathway through time that he could walk along mentally, with Marcus at his side, or connection across centuries made tangible by shared tales and starlit reflections under Rome's eternal skyline, where the past was always present. As they meandered down this storied thoroughfare of marble and memory, ancient sculptures stood as silent sentinels to days long gone, their gazes fixed upon Benji with a stoic permanence that seemed almost mocking yet comfortingly unchanging amidst the ceaseless flow of time. The Colosseum's distant shadow loomed large on one endap monolith, speaking volumes about gladiatorial past, its stones saturated in blood and triumph over adversity. For those who listened closely, with Marcus' voice guiding him through history, recounted not just spectacles of physical prowess, but also the indomitable spirit that had coursed within these very halls. They paused at a sundial, its gnomon casting an elongated shadow upon weather-beaten bricks, or marker of time when days were measured by light and shade rather than ticking hands on clock faces. Marcus traced the Roman numerals etched into stone. Benji imagined merchants bustling beneath this very spot, their lives intricately connected to these cycles as they conducted trade amidst a city that thrived within its own rhythm and routine daily dance of commerce set against nature's tempo. Their journey brought them next along the seashore where once mighty Roman galleys would have unfurled their sails, greeting waves with salty spray as they traded across Mare Nostrum, a bustling port that Marcus spoke to Benji of not just goods, but also storage tales carried on maritime winds from distant lands. He told tales where the sea's embrace was both nurturing and unpredictable, how it had shaped Rome's economy as much as its gods influenced culture, for in every tide lay a reflection of humanity itself, changeful yet constant, like nature intended by design or divine decree, whichever one chose to believe. Further down the shore's edge where marble columns stood weathered, Marcus described amphitheaters and villas that once pulsated with life. His words painted scenes of togas brushing against skin in warm Mediterranean breezes, while philosophers debated under open skies, a world alive with conviviality before the advent of electric light. Benji could almost hear laughter mingling with lyre strings, see senators and soldiers alike reveling at banquets that mirrored life's dual nature, pleasures enjoyed alongside prayers offered to deities who watched over these fortunes as intimately as they did the very stars above them. As night deepened into a velvet sea of darkness speckled with celestial bodies, Benji and Marcus found themselves within an olive grove where ancient Romans had once sought refuge from life's toils. In this hallowed place under Rome's watchful eyes rested the soul. Here was no mere garden, but a sacred space for contemplation or pause amidst relentless pursuit of power, wealth, and conquest that marked Roman history like milestones along an empire's path. Marcus spoke to Benji not just with tales from scroll or stonework, but also through shared silence where thoughts hung heavy as the night air. For stories are told in many ways not only by spoken word, and certainly under a sky that has borne witness to humanity's evolution since time immemorial. Their silent communion was like stepping stones across history's riverbed, allowing Benji glimpses into souls long past yet ever present. It seemed as though the ancient Romans themselves had reached out through ages and found a kindred spirit in him, a seeker of knowledge who wished to understand life's mysteries. Within this sacred grove's embrace, Benji felt less like an intruder upon history than rather its willing participant, his heartbeat synchronizing with the ancient rhythms that lay beneath these cobblestones and overgrown foliage, or pulse echoing through time. The past was no longer just a distant story told in hushed tones, but Marcus had spent his life studying Rome, a scholar with eyes gleaming not just under candlelight, but also when the stars unveiled themselves against an indigo sky above. His father's tales of ancient glory and tragedy were etched in his memory like sacred texts to be recited during times of solitude. Now he shared these memories, along with a wisdom that was almost palpable as it settled between them both, a bridge across time built not from stone but understanding. Beside him lay Benji, whose journey had led far beyond the bustling cities and war-torn lands of his homeland to stand here, within this timeless refuge where history seemed tangible enough to touch with bare fingers. He was an artist before he became a seeker, a craftsman who found solace in creation while yearning for something more profound than mere artistry could provide him, meaning and connection beyond the canvas of his life's work. As night progressed, they watched shadows dance over Rome's ancient stones, tracing patterns that told tales older than memory itself, of gods who walked among mortals when men had not yet realized their own power to shape worlds with thought alone, and heroes whose deeds were sung by bards long before Benji's birth. They could almost see the spirit of Marcus' father, a soldier in his youth under Emperor Hadrian's ruler time when Rome was at its zenith, stretching across continents like an empire upon which no sun dared to set. In this sacred grove, Benji imagined he could walk alongside the Romans who had once sought reprieve here from their endless quests for dominion, and Alesia, a place where even a simple plebeian might pause in reverie under Rome's watchful eyes before returning to his labors. He felt an unexplainable kinship with them, as though he too was seeking something beyond the scope of ordinary life, peace found within chaos, understanding amidst confusion, or truth that transcended time and culture. Marcus spoke now not in words, but through shared silence. Their eyes met often over texts on a weathered scroll, or across faded frescoes painted upon an ancient wall nearby. The stories of Rome were etched into every aspect of the environment, from marble statues that whispered secrets to crumbling ruins where once mighty temples stood tall and prouder testament to ambition's fleeting nature against infinity's canvas. Under this olive tree, Benji learned about Marcus' life as much as he shared his own, for in the quiet of Rome under moonlight that bathed them both with its gentle glow, they discovered common ground despite their diverse origins, or meeting point where two souls could unite over a mutual respect and wonderment at history's vast tapestry. As stars began to dot the sky like diamonds scattered by fate itself, Marcus recounted tales of Rome's resilience through ages marked with conquest and decay, her city reborn from ashes time after again. Yet it was not just about past glories, but also lessons learned and love lost, peace sought amidst strife. The stories were cautionary for those who would listen, that power must be wielded wisely or risk becoming the very darkness Rome had fought to keep at bay. Marcus and Benji partook of a simple meal prepared by Marcus' grandmother, corn dollops drenched in olive oil, flavors mingling like old friends sharing tales across tables laden with history's bounty. As wine flowed freely from ancient amphor refilled to the brim, their laughter blended into Roman night air that had heard countless similar joyous sounds over centuries of celebration and sorrow, alike a reminder that despite empire's fall, humanity always finds a way to find mirth in adversities, face or comfort in shared grief for lost kin. The hours slipped away unnoticed as they conversed about the world beyond Rome. Marcus spoke of his passion not only with words, but through stories that painted landscapes and epochs, while Benji listened intently, his curiosity piqued as Marcus and Benji lounged in comfortable armchairs beside a crackling fireplace that seemed to echo with whispers of Roman senators past. Their conversation meandered through time like the Tiber River itself, ever flowing yet occasionally quiet, before breaking into cascades. The warmth from both the flames and their companionship enveloped them as they settled deeper into reflections on humanity's relentless pursuit of knowledge across centuries, each tale an intricate mosaic piece in Rome's vast panorama stretching beyond city walls to touch upon every corner where light had touched shadow. Benji found himself lost within the tales Marcus spun, stories that intertwined with history's fabric like threads, through which he could trace his own lineage back and forth across ages, not as mere spectators, but participants in Rome's legacy of innovation since time immemorial. He learned about Archimedes leveraging physics to move the earth itself while contemplating how knowledge transcends lifetimes. It was a concept that resonated deeply with his own dreams and aspirations for contributing uniquely beyond what he thought possible in one life alone. The tales grew somber as they spoke of Rome's fall, not just from barbarian invasions, but internal strife among the elite, sowing discord like weeds between cracks on an ancient cobblestone pathway, each seedling root a testament to human fallibility. The empire's might was no match for its own corrosion from within. Even legends crumbled under their weight as Marcus recounted the fall of Rome with poignant detail that tugged at heartstrings and gnawed on philosophical thoughts about impermanence, legacy, and redemption. Yet Benji mused quietly while tracing patterns in his wine goblet made from glass blown by ancient artisans whose hands shaped the future with every breath they took inside their workshops. If we look at history not as a chronicle of decline but resilience and rebirth, Marcus nodded sagely. Indeed, my friend, for Rome's spirit never truly died. It merely slumbered under the rubble only to arise again like Dionysius from Hades himself. He smiled wistfully at this truth that history often hides within its shadowy depths for those patient enough to seek, and kindled by stories passed through generations, a storyteller's gift. Their dialogue then took flight towards the philosophers of Rome, those Stoics who sought tranquility amidst tumult, like Seneca advising Nero on how power can consume as much as it gives. Marcus shared this wisdom with Benji through tales where virtue was both armor and blade in personal conduct. They discussed how these ancient minds shaped modern thought. The impact of their philosophies echoed even now when society grappled daily with questions they had once debated under marble pillars on public forums, mere steps from this very tavern where two friends shared a meal and thoughts across time's table. As night deepened its embrace around the ancient city, Marcus spoke of how Rome always found ways to recover not just physically but culturally. Monuments rose in new eras as if phoenixes from ash-laden pyres, each year leaving a layer that enriched their heritage. This was an empire's heartbeat or cadence marked by construction and destruction, yet always returning to the beat of humanity's enduring pulse. It had been reborn through flames just as surely as from peaceful restoration in its aftermath. Benji listened with rapt attention while a symphony played softly between the mad backdrop for history that flowed ceaselessly, like the river they once walked by where Romulus and Remus were found suckling at an unsuspecting wolf's fur, destined to father nations. With every story told, Marcus felt as though he was weaving his own thread into Rome's enduring tapestry, a tale not just of conquest, but also personal growth and the journey towards wisdom that knowledge imparts upon those who seek it with a soul yearning for understanding beyond mere facts etched in stone. Their conversation spun around to discuss modernity, drawing parallels between ancient Rome's experiences and today's global village, how empires rise on digital frontiers as swiftly as they did along physical ones, how society now must navigate the complexities of a world ever more interconnected yet often divided by invisible chasms within cultures. In Chapter 18 of their nightly journey through time and tales, Marcus found himself in ancient Rome once more as if by magic at a grand feast hall where marble columns whispered secrets to those who would listen, where he felt his heart resonate with the echoes of history. The air was thick with conversation like incense. There were stories from every corner of the world, but Marcus's story had just begun its own path through time and self-discovery that weaved seamlessly into Rome's rich tapestry, and narrative intertwining personal evolution alongside a civilization in perpetual motion. Marcus took his seat at an intricately carved wooden table, across from Benji, who shared tales of their own lineage traced back to the very founders mentioned by Marcus just days prior. They spoke with great pride and reverence for ancient Rome's glory that had stood against time. As wine flowed freely like rivers through history's landscapes, so too did stories of valor in battlefields, of wisdom passed down from teacher to pupil beneath the shade of olive trees, once swaying above Roman markets and philosophers alike. The evening wore on as Marcus listened intently, his mind adrift among thoughts he had never dared explore before. Tales spun by Benji's grandmother depicted not just a city built with grandeur, but also one that learned from its past where destruction was often followed by rebirth and newfound strength. This cycle of loss and regeneration mirrored Marcus's own life, where he too had faced personal upheavals only to find renewal in unexpected ways. As the night deepened like a dark chasm into which forgotten tales disappeared, they spoke softly about Rome's expansion beyond its city walls, how it stretched across continents and oceans, as if reaching out with tentacles of influence that grasped lands for trade routes and conquest alike. Marcus found himself entranced by the storytelling. He felt a kinship, not just to this ancient empire, but also within his own spirit or desire burning like embers beneath ash in him since childhood was rekindling with each word spoken about Rome's relentless ambition and complex society. Benji's grandmother painted vivid pictures of the Roman Forum, where voices clashed not just over politics, but also on matters close to human hearts, love, loss, triumph, despair, echoing against columns that held more than laws. They bore witness to life itself unfold through centuries as people like Marcus himself continued their eternal dialogue. The stories of Julius Caesar and his republic's transition into empire resonated with the tension in today's world, a reminder from history how power, when wielded unchecked by conscience or compassion, often leads to ruin rather than dominance. Wisdom was not just found within stone walls, but also through understanding one's impact on others and oneself. Marcus felt this lesson like a mantle upon his shoulders as he gazed into the flickering candlelight that cast shadows reminiscent of ancient Rome's own journey from republic to empire, then decline when corruption seeped through its foundations, a tale not unique but universal in human experience. As they discussed how Romulus and Remus' mythical story had birthed a nation that would one day be the cradle of Western civilization, Marcus considered his own origins. He saw reflections of himself within these ancient tales, where heroes were also flawed men who grew in understanding through their journey. The lineage from wolf to emperor was not just about power, but survival and adaptation, or narrative that could speak directly into the heartbeats of those seeking purpose beyond ambition. A tale he felt compelled to add his own voice to within Rome's enduring saga. The symphony playing between them seemed now like time itself winding down for one final evening. Their shared experiences had drawn Marcus's soul closer not only to the city of dreams and ruins, but also toward a deeper connection with those around him, people who, just as he was doing so much listening today, sought understanding in history's embrace. As night surrendered its reign back into darkness outside their window, Marcus found himself grateful for stories that not only transport one across time and space, but through life's own evolution within oneself. The tales of old Rome had become a mirror reflecting his personal growth as much as they did society's grand narrative. With each word spoken beneath this ancient sky replicated in their modern abode, Marcus realized he was not just learning about history, felt himself becoming part of it, adding threads to its. Marcus awoke with dreams of his latest historical findings etched into his mind, or discovery that promised to rewrite Rome's history books yet again. As he lay in bed, swaddled by covers thick as scroll parchment, and the gentle murmur of rain against window panes whispering tales from an age past through pitter-patter percussion on tinny rooftops, his thoughts meandered like a lazy river down ancient hills until they settled into consciousness. His heart was steady with anticipation for tomorrow's lectures and the stories he would share, a newfound connection to history that had begun transforming him as much as it echoed through generations before. In Rome, where shadows stretched long from twilight's retreat into nightfall, Marcus found his peace amidst ruins worn by time itself, but standing with regal defiance against the ages-served testament to human endeavor and resilience that even now whispered secrets through crumbled stones. As he rose from bed this morning beneath a sky still pregnant with stars' glow, Marcus felt his spirit intertwining more intimately with history. Each relic was not just stone, but the heartbeat of humanity itself, echoing tales of triumphs and tribulations that resonated within him. He decided today to revisit one such place, a little-known subterranean chamber beneath Palatine Hill, where it's believed Julius Caesar once sought solace from political strife above ground, while the empire he would later lead battled its own internal wolves amongst men of ambition. The walls, now bare but for ancient frescoes that had faded into dust-laden memories, held tales not just of power and conquest but also personal evolution. How Caesar's journey from the Senate to dictator was punctuated by moments when he listened more intently than any emperor before or since. As Marcus delved deeper beneath layers of earth that had shielded this treasure trove for millennia, his fingers traced over mosaics depicting scenes not only from Roman myths, but also the everyday lives, laughter, and tears shared in campsites by weary soldiers or within marble halls where senators debated fates. It was here that Marcus uncovered a rare artifact, its surface etched with what appeared to be a conversation between two figures cloaked not just in togas, but also the wisdom of ages, or dialogue on leadership and legacy hidden beneath centuries of dust until now. The discovery propelled him into fervent research for days that followed. His lectures became odysseys through time, as he unveiled to eager minds how every leader faced trials both human and mythological in their path toward greatness or demise. Marcus found himself not merely a scholar, but an interpreter of history's soulful whispers, guiding others across timelines with tales that transcended mere facts into moral compasses for the present day's leaders to navigate by. One evening, as twilight cast its last golden hues upon ancient ruins and modern Rome alike before nightfall claimed her throne once more in silence beyond his window, Marcus felt an unspoken bond with those who had lived through empires' lifetimes, his own journey mirroring theirs. In every lecture, where he shed light on the past's obscured shadows for curious eyes to see clearly into present and future implications of power wielded without wisdom or restraint, Marcus felt his role as a storyteller was not just about chronicling history, but also understanding humanity itself within its continuum. The revelations he unearthed beneath Palatine Hill became catalysts for change in more ways than one. Students and scholars alike began to approach leadership with newfound introspection, acknowledging that the lineage of power was not solely about asserting oneself, but also understanding others. Marcus' teachings had sown seeds of empathy, a reminder from history's garden for modern society that even amidst ambition and aspiration to rule high, it is compassion and connection with those one leads which truly define an era or a legacy worth remembering by time immemorial. As Marcus prepared his notes on the day's findings in candlelight dimmed just enough for focus, yet not so much as to blind him from visions of ancient Rome that seemed alive within these walls, he realized history was more than stones and stories. It had become a dialogue between souls across ages. His lectures were no longer confined to classrooms, but echoed in the very streets where Caesar once paced her Alesia, as much about lessons learned from fallen as we tread softly upon this sacred ground, began Marcus in a lulling tone that beckoned his listeners to sit and ponder with him on cushions of wool. Let us reflect not just upon the grandeur Rome once held, but also its core of essence which led it here. The setting sun cast golden hues across ancient ruins as Marcus continued. Our journey today leads back to a singular discovery beneath Palatine Hill, he said with reverent eyes gazing into nothingness, a revelation that spoke of humanity's endless cycle of relentless pursuit for power and the perpetual quest for understanding within ourselves. His words were like threads weaving through time. A scholar from Milan raised her hand tentatively as Marcus concluded his introduction to today's musings. Professor Quintus inquired about a fresco depicting an elderly figure with eyes that seemed eternally wise, and Serena, could this be the embodiment of what you seek? Marcus nodded appreciatively at her insight. Indeed, he replied, his gaze still fixed on nothingness as if expecting visions to dance before him once more. Let us consider that within our grasp lies not only history, but also its echoes in the present. He paused for a breath of silence and then continued with renewed vigor. In this age where power often eclipses wisdom, it is imperative we learn from these ancients who knew that leadership without compassion leads to ruin. Their stories are not just tales, but guides or mirror reflecting our own society's virtues and vices. He paced gently as he spoke of the ways in Zero Marcus' lectures transcended academic dialogue, becoming a communal pilgrimage through time where each lesson felt like stepping stones across an eternal river. The narrative intertwined with personal stories told by elders who had witnessed Rome's rise and fall. These were the voices that gave Marcus' words flesh or tapestry of human experiences from which to draw understanding, both bitter and sweet. One must not only observe but also empathize. He counseled his audience, with sincerity in their eyes as they nodded along silently, to grasp the full spectrum of leadership's impact on those who follow. His voice softened further to encourage introspection within each listener. As evening approached and stars began to twinkle above them like distant ancestors watching over Rome once again, Marcus spoke with passion that only a heart entwined deeply in humanity's essence could muster. The true strength of any era is not measured by monuments or treasures, but the legacy it leaves within its people, their capacity for empathy and connection. With gentle resolve and eyes reflecting determination, Marcus shared his findings from beneath Palatine Hill. The echoes of ancient Roman life had imparted upon him a timeless lesson about respect and responsibility that even Caesar himself could not have ignored, for every action in leadership leaves its mark not just on stone, but within the soul. As he stood before his listeners, Marcus felt as though they were truly hearing from beyond time itself. The dialogue with history was no longer a mere academic exercise. It became an exchange of wisdom that bridged worlds and ages alike. In sharing this connection to humanity enduring spirit, the professor hoped not just for remembrance, but transformation for his listeners to carry forth these lessons into their own lives as torchbearers in a modern Rome still yearning for its soul's reunion with time-honored virtues. Marcus concluded his chapter by inviting reflection on the relevance of past wisdom in shaping tomorrow's leaders, emphasizing that even amidst an age where ambition often overshadows understanding, an empath of true measure lies within one's heart to connect with those they lead. As he dimmed candles around him just enough for focus, yet not so much as to blind his vision of the past before retreating into darkness, Marcus understood that history was indeed alive. Let us journey back to when Rome's heart beat strongest. He began softly, his voice steady yet gentle as if caressing their minds with each word. Imagine walking along these very cobblestones, where even now you can feel the shadows of togas and laurels that once adorned esteemed senators. The listeners leaned in closer, captivated by his enchanting narrative, as Marcus wove through a tale about Lucius Bonus, centurion, whose loyalty was unwavering. He stood resolute beside the fierce Caesar amidst political intrigue and whispers of conspiracy that threatened to engulf Rome like an insidious fog in winter's night. Marcus recounted how, on a fateful day when shouts erupted from within the Capitolium walls, Lucius found himself torn between duty and compassion as he witnessed friends fall prey to betrayal or sensation that chilled even his ironclad resolve. Yet it was here, Marcus continued with a tender smile touching upon their eyes, that Vaunus learned the virtue of forgiveness from an unlikely teacher. Gaius Marius's young daughter, Julia. She had been found in tears by Lucius after her father's unexpected demise at the hands he once fought to defend, with nothing but empathy and kindness for a stranger who shared his loss. Vaunus became not only an ally of Caesar against Rome's enemies, but also one within their hearts or testament that even in death Marius had left behind seeds of humanity which bloomed into acts transcending time. The audience was spellbound as Marcus spoke of ancient festivals and grandiose feasts where laughter mingled with the clinking sounds of wine cups, creating a symphony that seemed to resonate through eternity, itself a reminder that joy knew no era nor epoch in its essence. As night deepened into pregnant darkness outside their open courtyard sheltered by flickering lantern light and starlight peeking between folds of tapestries, the professor shared a tale from one such feast, where an old soldier with eyes as sharp as his gladius spoke wisdom that would echo in Roman hearts for generations. In Rome, he said quietly yet firmly to all ears present, true strength is not measured by how many enemies you conquer, but rather by the peace and prosperity of your people. The story took a poignant turn as Marcus narrated about Cicero's eloquence that swayed hearts against Julius Caesar's ambition. The orator stood firm, his voice resonating with conviction amidst murmurs in hushed Senate chambers and the rustle of silk robes, an unwavering reminder to Marcus that words carried power beyond their immediate utterance. They were stones cast into history's riverbed. As we delved deeper, he whispered into Rome's grand tapestry. He recounted the fall of an empire not by swords, but through neglect and disregard for its people, a lesson that even greatness could crumble when built on shifting sands. The professor's voice grew softer as he approached a tale close to his own heart, where Marcus had once been just another soul seeking purpose beneath the empire's vast skyline of marble and ambition, or youth whose footsteps echoed with dreams both grandiose and humble. His journey through Rome's annals was one that taught him about humanity itself. He came to understand how each stone in these ancient streets once pulsated not just as markers for conquest, but also pillars of civilization's greatest achievements: art, philosophy, the rule of law, which even today find form and function. Marcus shared stories that intertwined personal growth with Rome's own transformation from republic to empire through trials by fire and strife until a leader emerged who would forever alter its course: Caesar Augustus. The tale painted Marcus. Tale then wove through the era where emperors ruled not with iron fists but also fostered cultural renaissance, as Augustus understood that to bind an empire was more than force. It required loyalty born of prosperity and shared values among subjects from distant provinces alike. He spoke gently now about how education flourished under the Pax Romana, how arts and literature became vessels for wisdom passing through time like whispers on a breeze, touching lives across generations with tales that taught as much compassion as they did history itself. In his narrative lay Rome's great aqueduct system, marvels of engineering which were not only channels delivering life's elixir, but also the arteries through which civilization thrived in an empire stretching beyond horrors, where each citizen could find water at their doorstep and luxury was affordable for all. Marcus' voice, a soft-spoken stream of historical reverie, recounted tales where togas were as much symbols of identity as they were garments woven from the very threads of Rome's rich tapestry, a testament to unity in diversity within its borders and beyond them. As his voice danced through time like dappled sunlight across an ancient forum, Marcus spoke of temples dedicated not just to gods, but also places where citizens gathered for discourse on matters that shaped their world, a blend of spiritual reverence with civic responsibility under one roof for harmony he once aspired to find within himself. His heart poured into stories about the grandeur and decadence alike, from opulent feasts in imperial residences where laughter mingled freely among guests, but also austerity that reminded Romans of their shared human condition despite wealth's lurid juxtaposition as complex as Rome itself. Chapter content continued on where Marcus' personal evolution mirrored the empire's own, from republic to principate and beyond into times. He struggled even with his modest understanding of Roman history. His journey had brought him face to face with emperors whose legacies were etched not just in stone, but also in bloodshed Neros who drowned ambitions, the Severians who sought wisdom over scepter's weight, each chapter a step through Rome's unending corridor of power and its inherent fragility. He then shared his youthful dreams that once soared beyond marble skyline dreams where he was not merely an armored soldier or astute senator, but also the architect of peace, learning from each misstep along empire's sprawling pathway like a gardener tending to Rome's eternal flame. His aspirations evolved as his perspective widened. Marcus sought solace in philosophy and its teachings that unfurled before him through Cicero's eloquence, Seneca's stoicism amidst turmoil, Plutarch's tales of great men, and the lesser-known stories he had stumbled upon himself as one who dared question norms. Marcus recounted his travels to conquerors and scholars alike, how every encounter expanded not just Rome's realm, but also its spirit, learning from foreign cultures that even the most grandiose empire could learn humility or lesson as essential then as it was now. His eyes glimmered with tales of Alexandria, where wisdom flowed like Nile's waters, and Antipas, who sought solace in nature's embrace, reminding Marcus himself that growth is a journey without end nor final destination, but an ongoing quest within one another, a treasure trove unearthing Rome through its eyes. As the knight wove into history with each word spoken by his soft voice, he shared stories of trials and tribulations faced not only in battlefields, where valor was tested under sun's relentless gaze, but also within palace walls where power's allure often blinded even its beholders. His tales were stitches binding the fabric of Rome, with threads spun from strands, both bright and sombre, each narrative a patch in this grand tapestry, where individual lives danced to time's eternal rhythm amidst empire's heartbeat. This is but the beginning. He began softly into a gentle hum that lulled even trouble-ridden thoughts to sleep, as I recount tales from lands beyond our frontiers. Marcus had always felt an insatiable curiosity for stories untold and wisdom yet discovered, hence his journeys often led him far afield. The first of many was a journey across the seas that whispered secrets to those who dared listen, where men like Alexander were born from dreams as much as they did conquest or reflection on leadership echoing through history's vast hallways. Marcus remembered Alexandria with fondness for its grand library and scholars whose thoughts flowed freely into the night air he had so often spent beneath her luminous sky, learning of a world where knowledge could transcend even mortal boundaries. It was in these lands that one named Antipas found solace amongst nature's embrace. Marcus' heart ached for those moments when man sought harmony with the great outdo 08923 are our rare respite from Rome's unyielding quest against time and tide. His tales then shifted to lighter spirits, where he spoke of revelers in far-off lands who celebrated life's simple pleasures under moonlit skies with a fervor that kindled the heart, a stark contrast from Rome's relentless pursuit for glory and eternal legacy. But not all tales shimmered like gold. Some bore scars of battle, where even gods seemed to weep tears upon fields sown by valiant men, their blood mingling with earth in a summer dance across the ages, or testament that valor was as much about survival and sacrifice. Marcus' voice softened further when he spoke of Rome's very own battles within palace walls where power could blind even those who wielded it, tales not often sung amidst triumphant anthems but whispered in hushed tones through the corridors, a reminder that humility was a virtue as mighty as any sword forged. He shared stories of emperors whose hearts were heavy with guilt and senators who sought redemption not just within Rome's marble temples, but amongst her people, their spirits entwined in the eternal struggle between ambition and morality, a reflection on power that Marcus felt had been too often misused. As his narrative wove through time like threads of silk, he spoke with reverence for Rome's architectural marvels, aqueducts spanning great chasms as if to challenge the heavens themselves, and amphitheaters where echoes still resonate, a city built on stone that embraced life's transience. Marcus then delved into lesser-known tales, those stumbled upon by himself in his quest for understanding beyond Rome's borders, stories of foreign queens who wore their hearts like armor and philosophers whose musings still haunted the very cobblestones. They trod a reminder that wisdom could be found not just within marble halls, but also in humble hearths. He spoke with an intimate detailing of Rome's festivals, where gods were honored and mythologies birthed from men's fears and dreams, a celebration under the watchful eyes of deities whose whispers guided destiny itself, or testament to how deeply spiritual life coursed through Roman veins. Within his stories lay personal anecdotes, where Marcus shared laughter with children who knew not yet the burdens that would come in time, tales when he too was but a boy learning beneath learned scholars, tutelage a reminder of innocence before it fell prey to Rome's enduring struggle. He recounted evenings spent at gatherings where wine flowed as freely as the talk that unveiled souls, and friendships were forged in kindred spirits, a camaraderie born from shared struggles against empire's tempests or bond beyond bloodlines or titles. Marcus spoke of romances tinted with hues more vibrant than the laurel crowns bestowed upon victors, where love knew no bounds and passion burned bright as Vesper's flame in sacred hearth. Stories that Rome, in chapter 24 of his journey through time and tales, Marcus began to speak softly about a less known but equally captivating period in Roman history, the reign of Emperor Hadrian. It was during this era that Rome reached its zenith as an architectural powerhouse under the rule of one who had traveled far beyond his homeland's borders, bringing with him not just ambition and vision, but a personal touch to leadership seldom seen before in Roman emperors. Hadrian was different, Marcus would often say as he let nostalgia warm the chill of evenings past, for when he assumed power, his first act wasn't one born out of conquest or expansion, but a desire to explore and understand. The stories that followed were steeped in Hadrian's passion for travel. Marcus painted vivid pictures with words as if they had brushed strokes on the canvas of Rome itself. He spoke fondly about Hadrian visiting Britannia, not just ruling it from afar, but living amongst its people and learning their dialects. Romans often told tales that celebrated emperors' achievement, however grandiose these might have been to foreign ears who had never seen Rome in all her beauty or heard the stories of old heroes passed down through generations. But Hadrian's story was different, and Marcus shared it with a sense of personal connection because he knew that Emperor Hadrian himself once walked those same cobbled streets as we did now, his footsteps echoing tales not just in marble halls, but humbly too in the very hearthstones where men gathered to share their daily lives and dreams. One day Marcus would recount with a twinkle of amusement in his eye while sipping wine under starlit skies, Hadrian decided to venture into Greece once more. The stories had an undertone that spoke not just of Hadrian's appreciation for Greek culture, but also the deep respect he held. His reign saw Athens flourish a city-state, where democracy thrived and philosophers like Marcus Aurelius pondered under olive trees, their thoughts intertwined with nature's own wisdom as much as human contemplations were valued within Rome's heartbeats. Marcus often paused his storytelling to reminisce about the day he himself had journeyed across continents in Hadrian's wake, a boy of no more than 15, with wide-eyed wonder reflecting off polished stone and verdant fields alike as they traveled together. In this chapter, Marcus spoke not just out loud, but also through his own heartbeat syncopated to the rhythm of Hadrian's legacy, a reminder that innocence once bathed in wisdom's light could shape more than its immediate world into something greater and everlasting. As night descended upon Rome, Marcus would draw parallels between past festivities honoring gods with present-day revelry under moonlight, where the soul of Roman festivity laughter shared over tales as old as time itself was equally revered among those who sought to celebrate life's ephemeral beauty. But let us not forget, Marcus would say, his voice growing softer like a lullaby that promised rest in the embrace of history's arms, that Hadrian loved too. The stories he shared were imbued with affection for Antinous, or Greek youth, whose tragic fate had woven itself into Roman mythology and personal legacy. Marcus would recount tales where love transcended life's fragile thread, his eyes shimmering as if witness to the eternal flame of passion that Hadrian cherished so dearly, a light guiding through night's darkest hours until it too was extinct zero. The instructional content has been cut off, however, based on what you have provided up to this point and given Marcus' storytelling style as described earlier in the summary of chapter 23, I will continue writing a substantial chapter for him without deviating from his personal anecdotes or including external elements not present before, In these tales, where Hadrian's heart was laid bare with Antinous, a man who had captivated Rome and became enshrined in the annals of history alongside its most revered deities, Marcus would regale us, his audience gathered like constellations around a shared flame of remembrance that even now illuminates our humble abode here on earth, so many centuries later, a tale not merely told but deeply felt, as if Hadrian and Antinous' love was still palpable in the very air we breathe. In that tender evening's glow, when we gathered to listen once more, Marcus began a new tale, saga not of empires clashing on blood-stained fields, but rather one where love blossomed in secret gardens and under twinkling city lights. It was the story he had promised us time before, the evening whisper, as it came to be known among those who were truly close, a tale of two souls intertwined by fates delicate, and Hadrian himself and Antinous. Marcus spoke softly, yet with an intensity that seemed only fitting for the subject at heart. His voice wove through our eager ears like threads, pulling us closer to this ancient embrace of affectionate devotion, where love was not a mere word, but as real in Hadrian's life as Rome itself. Antinous, Marcus began with reverence that settled over each person present, was no ordinary youth. He bore the visage and spirit of gods, a reflection so divine it stirred even emperors to dream. The audience leaned forward collectively, their breaths held in anticipation as his fingers traced patterns on our tabletop. Our tale unfolds under Hadrian's rule. He continued with a measured tone that conjured images of grand Roman bathhouses where philosophers and patrons alike sought refuge from the day's toil, a time when artistry thrived in marble and frescoes. Yet our interest lies not within these hallowed creations, but beneath their gaze. Marcus paused as he shared a memory and exquisite portrait of Hadrian himself with Antinous beside him, the youth radiating confidence that was both commanding and endearing to any soul fortunate enough for its proximity. Through his tales, we journeyed along Rome's cobbled streets as Marcus recounted their meetings, first in secret gardens where Hadrian would ponder over epics of old with Antinous by his side, and later under the very gaze of Apollo himself at Delphi. It was not merely an encounter, but a dance, one that began to define much more than friendship between man and youth. It became legend within Rome's walls, or love so profound yet concealed from prying eyes, until Hadrian sought solace in Antinous' company on the road during times of mourning. Amidst his travels, our beloved emperor found a peculiar comfort. Marcus narrated as if he himself had once shared that rare moment with Hadrian when grief's shadow fell upon him, and yet love for Antinous shone brightly in the depths of sorrow, a testament to their bond. He would whisper into his ear, "Antoninus," said Marcus solemnly, as if addressing us directly, or perhaps himself, and he'd find not only comfort but also a touchstone that grounded him through tumultuous times. The tale unfolded with Hadrian's return to Rome after the death of Antinous. The city was abuzz. Rumors were rampant like wildfire in dry forest brush, and yet, even amidst scandal's shadow, loomed a love that defied time, a romance so profound it seemed woven into Hadrian's very soul. Marcus emphasized the dichotomy of their relationship, one cloaked in public reverence as a god-loving emperor, privately an immortal passion burning brightly within his heart for Antinous, who had been transformed to divine status posthumously by Rome's citizenship and deification. As Hadrian navigated the delicate politics of favor with Augustus, Marcus' voice took on a conspiratorial whisper among us. Antinous was worshipped throughout Egypt as Serapis, or god whose presence echoed in marble statues that would stand century along Rome's storied boulevards. His memory became an everlasting testament to the love Hadrian held for him. As Marcus' storytelling continued, he spoke of festivals and feasts where Antinous was worshipped with divine honors, or god-king whose reign extended beyond mortal coil into eternity. "Even as I sit here telling you about this love," said Marcus quietly to himself, or perhaps us all, "I am reminded that the heart's deepest desires often lead it through paths of shadow and light." The evening waned with tales not just recounting history, but also reflective musings on humanity's timeless pursuit for love, or thread unbroken from Hadrian to Marcus, each man a guardian of, as Marcus' words weaved through time like a gentle stream over pebbles and reeds. He continued to recount Hadrian's unparalleled passion for Antinous with an intimate candor that only true lovers could share in hushed tones before sleep took them, with the fading sunlight casting its golden glow upon his audience of one or perhaps many more. Marcus spoke softly yet vividly about a time when Hadrian and Antonius would meet under cover of night, when secrets whispered between shadows were as much part of their world as daylight was for others. In the heart of Rome lay an enigmatic garden where these two souls found solace away from prying eyes, a hidden haven that served as witness to Hadrian's deepest confessions and Antonius' silent assent in agreement made in hushed breaths on moonlit nights. It was here, beneath the watchful gaze of ancient gods, where their love flourished quietly without fanfare or public adoration, a stark contrast between private devotion and imperial duty that Marcus illustrated with poignant clarity as he recounted tales from Hadrian's youth, when Antonius first captured his heart during one such clandestine meeting in this very garden. The story unfolded like the petals of an evening bloom, revealing itself layer by delicate layer to those who sought refuge within its embrace. Marcus narrated how Antonius was not only a lover, but also Hadrian's companion on numerous expeditions that took them across distant lands, or bond forged in shared experiences and silent understandings beyond the reach of common comprehension, where every handshake held more meaning than any spoken word could convey. The tale then gently meandered through time to reveal a pivotal moment when Antonius' untimely death struck Hadrian with an unfathomable blow or loss that seemed as though the world itself had turned its back on their love, leaving behind only echoes of what once was. Marcus paused for a breath before continuing his narrative to describe how Rome's citizens transformed Antonius into Serapis, the Egyptian god, after which Hadrian himself took up this divine mantle as an act both honorable and personal, sacred burial ground beneath the soil of Alexandria, where he would lay side by side with Antonius in death what they had denied themselves in life. In a reverent tone that carried the weight of centuries upon it, Marcus spoke now not just of Hadrian's ascent to power, but also his heart's unyielding loyalty or love so profound and eternal it transcended even death itself. He recounted how festivals were held in Antonius Serapis' name, where citizens would feast, dance under the stars. He had once been among them as a mortal man, but was now their divine consort to an unspoken godhead celebration of love that knew no bounds and spanned eternity. As night embraced all in its comforting shroud, Marcus recounted stories where Hadrian would visit the Alexandrian tombs on special occasions, offering prayers for Antonius' everlasting spirit to bless them with prosperity or tradition that continued as a solemn rite passed down through generations. These tales were shared not just as history, but also as testament to the resilience of human emotion and connection across time. How love's flame could ignite an eternal bond, undimmed by death's cold hand or society's fickle whims. He spoke now with a tenderness that seemed almost uncharacteristic for Marcus, himself a man more accustomed to recounting public triumphs and imperial grandeur than the delicate dance of courtship between emperor and beloved. Yet, as he relayed Hadrian's private moments alongside Antonius in his chamber within Rome's palatial walls, where they would exchange letters never meant for eyes, but only soul's most intimate expressions of affection that time could not erode nor envy comprehend, Marcus wove into the narrative how Hadrian, even as he wore public masks of duty and reverence to gods alike, kept a constant vigil over Antonius' memory within his heart, a treasure more priceless than any gem or trove in Roman coffers. In quiet contemplation beneath starlit skies that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires since time immemorial, Marcus reflected upon how love itself seemed to be a journey not through space, but rather across epochs or force, as timeless as Hadrian's rule or Antonius' divine legacy. As Marcus concluded his tale of Hadrian and Antonius under starlit skies that had borne witness to countless human dramas, he found himself enveloped in a comforting silence ere pause before continuation, where time seemed suspended like the gentle fall of dew upon morning petals. It was during this tranquil interval between two worlds past and present that Marcus' grandmother began her own saga within his hearty family law, for she too had shared a connection with Hadrian through an ancient artifact discovered in Rome centuries ago, a delicate locket containing strands of hair purported to belong to Antonius himself. This chapter unfolds as Marcus recounts the intriguing discovery made on one fateful afternoon by his great-great-grandfather, Thomas Edmondson, during a leisurely stroll through Rome's cobblestone streets in search of history's whispers for young Elizabeth, his beloved daughter and an avid historian herself. The locket lay concealed within the ruins beneath Hadrian's column, unearthed by Edmondson as he chanced upon a hollow stone that cradled relics from eras long gone to dust in his palm. Elizabeth's eyes had widened at such sight, her heart raced with the thrill of tangible history nestling into her fingers, yet she remained oblivious as Thomas presented it merely as a curious trinket or token for their children's education on Roman antiquities. But within its golden confines was more than mere strands and metalwork. Therein lay an indelible link to the very soul of Hadrian's Rome, one that would forever alter Elizabeth Edmondson's understanding of love transcending time itself. Marcus delves into his family recountings, where he learned from grandmother Alesia about how she had carefully preserved and eventually passed down this unique artifact through generations, her locket safeguarding a legacy not just in form, but essence, as if each strand of hair embodied the very breaths Hadrian took within his beloved emperor's heart. As Marcus continued to weave together family tales with historical threads that connected back to Rome and its enduring love story between Emperor Hadrian and Antoninus, her tale immortalized in stone, paintings on frescoes of Pompey's Villa Jovis, depictions amidst the bustling marketplace known as Trajan's Market, where citizens might have heard whispers about this divine connection. He described how Hadrian had chosen Antoninus not just for his beauty, but also because he sought a companion to share in imperial solitude and governance, a man, Marcus detailed with fervor, that painted images of tender moments between the two men amidst grandeur and artistic endeavors across Rome's domains. Intriguingly, grandmother Edmondson's own family law suggested a secret ceremony under Hadrian's reign wherein Antonius had been declared Grecus et Gravii, signifying his embrace of both Greek and Roman virtues as he became the cherished companion to Rome's greatest ruler. This revelation, Marcus recounted with an almost reverent tone that imbued him with a sense of continuity in familial history, of lineage tied not by blood but through shared human experiences across ages past. It was within these stories and the artifact itself that Elizabeth Edmondson found herself drawn to her studies like moths to flame, leading ultimately to an academic pursuit focused on Hadrian's reign and Antoninus' cult, and exploration of how emperors could cultivate personal relationships with their subjects in ways we might scarcely conceive today. Marcus spoke now as if the locket itself whispered through time into his grandmother's heart, where she had once held it close to her own face, when reciting Hadrian's virtues and Antoninus' tragic end, a young man whose life was cut short by sea in a storm-driven shipwreck. Yet the story continued unabated with how his memory lived on through this token of affection, cherished not just for its beauty, but as an emblem representing Hadrian's immortal devotion and Antoninus' undying legacy, or narrative that transcended mere history to touch upon humanity itself. As the night deepened into a tapestry woven with threads of silver moonlight, Marcus felt himself become part of this endless story, where love had conquered even death's embrace and been reborn anew in every generation's heart that remembered her tale as eternal. As Marcus continued to trace his fingers along the contours of Hadrian's locket with reverent curiosity, he felt as though each delicate engraving whispered secrets from a time when Rome itself was young and its emperors were both men and gods in mortal form. The soft glow of candlelight danced on his skin, while the silver moonbeams that slipped through the window panes mingled with shadows to create an ambience as intimate as any private ceremony held within Hadrian's palatial walls. It was at this very moment, in these hallowed spaces, where Marcus understood how love could defy even death and find permanence beyond our own lives. The locket had been a gift from his grandmother to her late husband during the height of Antoninus' culture time, when Rome's heart beat with passion for Hadrian, its emperor cherished as much for his virtues as he was celebrated and mourned in equal measure. As Marcus reflected on tales told by generations past within this very room where they had spent countless hours together, now that it belonged to him alone, a treasure trove of shared history enveloping them both, the stories seemed all-consuming yet comfortingly familiar, like an old lullaby sung in a distant land. As Marcus closed his eyes for just a moment longer under this blanket of time and tales, he felt not only himself, but also Hadrian's spirit within that golden locket, her testament to the bond between emperor and loyal subject, as much about personal affection as imperial duty. The night deepened further into an intimate fold, where Marcus could almost hear whispers from beyond, voices murmuring of how Antoninus' untimely demise at sea was mourned not only with tears, but also in the hearts of many who believed themselves bound together by something transcendent, a shared humanity that had survived through ages and articulated itself within this very locket. The stories his grandmother once told about Hadrian's reignite love for Antinous, leading to an enduring legacy memorialized in marble statues of the youth eternally frozen mid-pose, caught between life's exuberance and death's solemnity, had been a tapestry woven through Marcus' own lineage. As he opened his eyes again after this brief communion with past generations soon to be joined by future ones in the locket around him, felt as though history was not simply something observed but lived within these walls, where every echo had its source and each story held a breath of life that pulsed through time. As he rose from his seat at last, Marcus allowed himself one more glance upon Hadrian's portrait framed above the hearth, a visage as stoic yet compassionate in death as it was revered for its earthly achievements and empathetic leadership during life. The locket felt heavy against his chest now that he had been granted this connection to days when love's expression transcended mere humanity, becoming something ethereal or bond between souls across time itself. In the quietude of Marcus' own study, where Hadrian and Antinous continued their silent dialogue through generations, encapsulated in gold filigree lay an unspoken understanding that love was not bound by temporal constraints but a force as eternal as Rome's stone, carrying forth into future epochs. As the night whispered onward towards dawn's first light and Marcus closed his grandmother's Journal of Hadrianic Law for yet another evening reading session, he knew that though he might never meet these storied souls in person again, their stories would forever live within him as an enduring part of who he was. And so the locket remained close to Marcus' heart throughout his solitary nights spent delving deep into Hadrian's reign and Antinous' culture bridge across time that had allowed a young man from Bithynia, whose love for Rome led him not only down an ill-fated sea, but also through the annals of history itself. It was this very connection between Marcus' own bloodline and Hadrian that ensured their legacy would never be forgotten, instead becoming immortalized within each new generation's memory, as they carried forward a love story spanning millennia, narrative woven not just with threads of gold, but the silver moonline itself. As he drifted into sleep, Marcus realized that though his journey through history might lead him to explore Hadrian's reign and Antinous' cult in depth over many years yet to come, their stories had already been an essential part of who they were from birth onwards. And Marcus lay in bed that night as if he were nestled between Hadrian and Antinous himself. His mind had wandered through time, tracing their footsteps within the golden pages of history, once more a pilgrimage across centuries to understand love's power. As Marcus drifted off to sleep with thoughts still lingering on those elixir-fated days at sea and Hadrian's reign in his heart, he dreamt not just about a boy fallen for the beauty before him, but also of how their connection echoed through generations beyond Rome's ancient walls. Within Marcus' slumbering mind lay visions where children played under Roman arches, whisperings on wind-blown grass carried tales from Hadrian's court locket, a silent guardian against time in the palm of his dreamer hand. These images were not mere figments but strands woven into Marcus' heritage. Antinous had once loved him as fiercely, and so too would future descendants carry that flame forward through tales told by elders under Stalin's, keeping the memory alive with every beat of their hearts. In his dreamscape turned reality, where Hadrian's eyes met Antinous' gaze beneath a moon as full and promising as any Marcus had ever seen, he could feel the touch of history on him like warm fingers tracing down to earth from heaven itself, for a connection not just felt but lived. In this eternal moment, when time seemed irrelevant, Hadrian knelt before Antinous with reverence beyond adoration. They shared laughter and whispered secrets that would outlive empires as surely as the very stars overhead had done for eons past their mortal days there, the constellation to which Marcus felt inexorably tied. The dreamscape wove through Hadrian's reign, touching upon his ascension and the challenges he faced ruling Rome with wisdom yet firm hand. It was here that Antinous had first court Marcus, a boy whose very presence seemed to command respect among soldiers as much for character as valor. Under Hadrian's patronage, young Bithynian rose in stature while his heart grew, fonder of the eternal city and its endless possibilities. It was a love that transcended mere admiration or political alliance. It touched on something deeper within both souls, cause where passion for each other burned brighter than any torch could hold. As Marcus' dreams continued, he saw how Hadrian adopted Antinous as his beloved companion and friend, It was a bond that went beyond mere friendship or mentorship or union of two spirits seeking solace in shared moments amid the pressures of rule and expectation from within Rome's marble-clad walls. In Marcus' mind, he envisioned Antinous by Hadrian's side through triumphant parades and solemn decrees alike, their love a beacon that brought light to even his own solitary nightly readings, a reminder of the world beyond himself as much within it too. The dreamt narrative shifted from grandiose public spectacles back into private moments where Marcus, like Hadrian and Antinous before him, found comfort in shared secrets beneath a blanket on cold marble floors or along quiet paths that led through ancient gardens. The locket around his neck seemed to pulse with life, as if it too was part of this eternal dance. Through these reveries where Marcus saw himself a young man finding solace and kinship in Hadrian's era, he realized how deeply love had shaped not just individual lives, but also history itself. The threads that bound them together were stronger than any chain or lock could ever hope to formulate around their memories. As morning light began creeping through his window pane like a slow and gentle painter recreating day, Marcus felt as if he had been awakened not just by time, but also an understanding that the love between Hadrian and Antinous was eternal, or beacon for those who seek connection across ages. He would carry their stories in his heart, always tales of devotion so profound it seemed to echo through history, inspiring all future generations as surely as Rome itself had inspired legions before him. And when Marcus finally emerged from the embrace of sleep and into the realm where dreams were tethered firmly by reason's rope, knew that though he might never witness Hadrian or Antinous with his own eyes, their love story was an eternal part of him. It had been passed down through generations as surely as tales from one elder to the next,